Hello everyone, welcome to our project 3D reconstruction and we are team 43. So these are the contents which we will be discussing in our presentation. People involved, overview, project setup, project pipeline, use case diagram, sprint backlog, our progress so far and our future works. So the team members are as follows. I am Sarthak Singhal.
I am Anush Mahajan.
And my name is Pulkit Gera.
Our teaching assistant is Pratik Kamble sir and our client is Anil Kumar Upadhyay from Five Finger Solution.
In the given project, we are supposed to reconstruct a given scene using the Intel RealSense 2 cameras. The given project has n number of cameras set up through which a particular scene will be shot. These cameras will provide us with the depth images. These depth images will be used to reconstruct the scene in 3D using different image stitching techniques and panorama techniques. So the setup we'll be using is as follows. The cameras used are Intel RealSense 2 cameras and the software used are OpenCV both in Python and C++ and the RealSense 2 library in C++. The project pipeline is as follows. Till stage 1, we will collect the given set of images shot using the Intel RealSense cameras. Till stage 2, we process these images. The given images will be stitched depending upon the number of key point matches. And once this is done, we'll proceed to stage 3, which is wrapping. Once the panorama is generated, it will be transformed into either cylindrical or spherical coordinates to give a 360-degree vision. This is the use case diagram. In this use case diagram, the main actors are the cameras, the 3D engines, and the image processor, which will interact with the system to give us the results. The plan followed by our team in the development is in line with Agile Scrum methodology.
Let me discuss the sprint backlog with you. The project has been undertaken in 3 sprints, out of which 1 is done and second we are halfway through. Talking about the first sprint, that was about the image collection, where we had collected the images through the Intel RealSense cameras, where we had identified the optimal number of cameras and their settings in order to minimize occlusion. While in sprint 2, that is in which we are halfway through, we'll be talking about image processing, which will be discussed later. But speaking broadly, it will be involving image stitching and panorama generation and wrapping of panorama. The third sprint, that will be somewhere around towards the end of R2, will be the successful generation of point cloud and texture mapping so that we can get the entire 3D reconstructed. Image processing, the second sprint. So image stitching or photo stitching is a process of combining multiple images with overlapping fields of view to produce a panorama or high resolution images. Speaking broadly again, is basically that we have a lot of images with certain key points that are matching, which will be again explained later on in detail, and we stitch them on the basis of the similar key points. Let's understand the problems that we had faced early on. The illumination in two views cannot be guaranteed to be the same. Stitching 2 images could create a visible seam. Other reasons for the seam appearing could be the background changing between 2 images for the same continuous foreground. In general, the major issues to deal are the presence of parallax, lens distortion, scene motion, and exposure differences. Also, with multiple viewpoints, the depth also comes into play. In our case, the ideal set of images will have a reasonable amount of overlap, given that the scale is pretty small, and the set of images will have consistent exposure between frames to minimize the probability of seams occurring. However, which is where we will be benefiting, since our project involves static objects and is on a lower scale. Now let's discuss the sprint analysis. So in our image processing sprint, first process will be of the key point detection. This is an important step which will help us identify whether the 2 images can be stitched or not. Once the key points are detected, we will be extracting out descriptors and cleaning them through different algorithms. Then they are matched. Once they are matched, then we create a homographic matrix, which is essential in image stitching and helps us identify whether 2 images can be stitched. This sprint will keep on going unless we find 2 sets of images that are compatible with each other. Now I'll ask Anush to explain in detail key point detection.
Key point detection. What are key points? Key points or interest points are spatial locations or points in the image that define what is interesting or what stands out in the image. Extracting descriptors. So what makes key points different between frameworks is the way you describe these key points. These are known as descriptors. So for different algorithms, there'll be different descriptors for the same key points. Key point matching. After we have extracted the descriptors, we align the images such that to minimize the sum of absolute differences between overlapping pixels. This is done by the algorithms such as SIFT, SURF, or all. The first step is to detect and describe the images according to the algorithm that will be used. We take input from the user in an orderly fashion. Leftmost image at first, the next one as is second. We then convert these images into grayscale so we can apply the necessary algorithm to find the key points of the image. The below is an example of a grayscale image, and the circles that you can see that are colored are the key points of the given image used to find the stitching. The key point detection will vary according to the algorithm as discussed earlier. The merits and demerits of the above algorithms will be discussed later in the presentation by Sarthak. Second step is to convert the detected key points into an array for comparison. We know that computers can't understand what an image is, they can only understand numbers. So this is what we do to convert the key points into numbers so that computer can understand it. We use a numpy array instead of a normal array because numpy array can has many inbuilt functions, so we don't have to write our own functions. The third step is to match the key points on both the images. After the key point arrays of both the images has been generated, we compute which are the raw matches that are being generated and initialize the list of actual matches. To find the raw matches, we use either brute force or flan algorithm. As you can see that brute force has a time complexity of O of n square, which is not desirable. Whereas flan has an time complexity of O of log n, which is very desirable as we are doing real-time stitching. Hence, after applying flan, we find the actual matches in both the images using Lowe's ratio test. We make sure that the distance of the key points is within a certain ratio of each other. If the ratio is too high, some unwanted matches might occur, and if it is too low, some matches might be missed. Hence, we keep it just right for this use case. In our use case, we are using the ratio as 0.75. So these are the results. These are the two images of CIE. As you can see in the left image, there the painting is not visible. In this image, it is visible. Using the SIFT algorithm, we find the key point matches, and these are described here with the green line. And this is the final result that we get. There is a visible seam that is due to the points mentioned earlier by Pulkit, but we will work to make sure that this does not occur in the final product.
The next topic that comes in our pipeline is the creation of homographic matrices. You must be wondering, what is this fancy term called homography? Basically, if we have two images if we have two cameras that are capturing the same images but from different viewpoints, how do we match the redundant points? How do we establish the relationship and map pixel coordinates from one image to another? For example, in the given image, we can see that we have different perspective of the same object. Now, when we are going to stitch these two images, there must be a way where we can map those redundant points. Otherwise, we will have more of the seam and more of the redundancies that will distort the image. This step is a very essential step in our image stitching process. So, what do we achieve through homography? So, we go through perspective transformation, which maps 3D points onto 2D image planes using transformation matrix that incorporates different characteristics of the camera, that are focal length, optical center, and the extrinsic parameters such as rotation and translation. This can be written through the matrix given in the slide. Also, we reproject the point from one camera onto another. We would have to inverse project the image point into world coordinate system through the given transformations as in the slide. Now, you must be wondering, how does this entirely thing work? So, as you can see in the given diagram, we have two images, and this we have to use camera calibration, and applying the homography matrix, we can map the image from one camera to the another. This way, we can understand onto how to tackle the case of redundant points while stitching the two images. So finding the homographies. How can we find the homographies? There are multiple methods, one being from calibration parameters which are given from the camera metadata. They work, but they might not always be known. The second idea is by matching features across images. That is the more popular one. So what features exactly do we match across images? Pixel values, canny edges, Harris corners, shift features, or whichever algorithm that we are using, or whole lines. Since we are using shift algorithm, it is always better to use shift features, then remove the outliers. In that case, we get a very good result, which is why this entire sprint is being conducted. So these are the homographies that are done by feature mapping, where we get the corresponding matrix, and once we solve this matrix, we get linear equations which help us identifying how to solve the redundant points. We estimate a relative orientation transformation within the two images. Once we match the shift features, the next step is to reject outliers using ransack. Ransack is a basic algorithm that has an idea that we contain inliners and outliners. Outliners are the points that do not fit the model or basically are noise. Once we remove that, then we can improve the quality of the image stitching. Now I'll hand over to Sarthak to
So now we'll see different algorithms which we can use to stitch images. There are mainly three algorithms which we can use, and they are SIFT, SURF, and ORB. All the algorithms consist of a series of steps to stitch images, and there are mainly four important steps: constructing scale space, finding key points, assign orientation, and generating descriptors. Now, since we are using SIFT in our case, we'll discuss it in detail and look upon SURF and ORB in the later slides. So SIFT basically came up to make the existing algorithm scale invariant, as the earlier algorithms varied with the scale. Now, constructing scale space basically means to perform calculations on different scales so that the process can become scale invariant. To construct a scale space, we blur the image, which makes the result more accurate. We take the original image and generate progressively blurred out images. Then we resize the original image to half size, and you generate blurred out images again, and we keep on repeating this. Now, what is blurring of an image? So blurring an image is basically just another mathematical operation like rotating and resizing. In SIFT, we use Gaussian blur operator, which when applied to an image gives us the blurred image. Main method of evaluating key points is Laplacian of Gaussian LOG method. But this method is quite expensive, so we'll be using DOG method in SIFT to reduce the time complexity. Now, DOG stands for difference of Gaussian, and this is approximately equivalent to LOG and can be easily used. Thus, we have replaced the expensive LOG operation with the quick DOG operation. Finding key points. Once we have evaluated the GOD, we can easily find key points. For this purpose, we construct a 3x3 cube, and if the middle pixel is maximal or minimal, we take it as a key point. After this, using Taylor's approximation, we can find the subpixel maxima or minima. Removing bad key points. The above process gives us many unwanted key points. So to remove bad key points, we check for edges and low contrast points and remove them by applying filters to the output of the above step. Key point orientation. For orientation, we consider a small region around a key point and calculate the most prominent orientation for each such region and assign it to it. After getting orientations, we place them in 36 buckets of 10 degrees each and calculate the orientation for the key point as the most prominent orientation. This method is known as the histogram bin method. Generating features. To generate features, we take a small region around the key point and divide it into 4x4 grid. Each such grid is further divided into 16 smaller blocks. For each such block, we calculate the orientation and classify them into 8 regions of 45 degree each and construct a 8-dimensional vector. Doing this for all 16 blocks, we generate a 128-dimensional descriptor which uniquely identifies a key point. Now we'll study SURF algorithm. SURF was developed as a fast alternative to SIFT. Approximating LOG. SURF makes the algorithm fast by approximating LOG by using box filter and integral images. Descriptors are found using wavelet response in the neighborhood of the key point, which is fastened with the use of integral images. Orientation is assigned using wavelet response and categorizing them into bins of 60° each rather than 10° bin used by the SIFT algorithm. Orb algorithm. Orb algorithm uses fast and brief methods to accelerate the process of image stitching. Fast algorithm works by defining the neighborhood of a point as all the points lying in the circumference of a certain radius constructed around the point and finding maxima and minima out of those points. Orientation is defined using intensity centroid, which is a quick alternative. Descriptors are found using binary test functions. Now all these three functions are pretty easy to calculate and thus reduce the time comparing between different algorithms. Since in our SSAD project, we can control many external factors, it is quite easy to decide among the algorithms to be used. SIFT algorithm takes most time to give the result, but this is not a major problem as for now our focus is to stitch the images and not on the time. So as we can see in the table, SURF algorithm detection time is least given by the ORB algorithm, then SURF and the most time is taken by the SIFT algorithm. Most important factor for us is the accuracy, and we can see in the table that SIFT provides the most accurate result as it matches the most key points in different conditions. Here in the different images, we can see that when we have rotated images, images with different intensity, and images with a lot of common region, SIFT gives us the most number of key point matches. Now we'll look our results which we have calculated from the images. Now here are two images, image A and image B. Now, the most prominent feature about these images is that they have different viewpoints and the number of key point matches are very less. So this is a good test to decide upon the algorithm to be used. Now, as we can see here, ORB and SURF algorithm do not give good result as the number of key points are very less, but the SIFT algorithm gives us very good results. So here we are using SIFT in our case. Further modifications. Apart from all these processes, we can further apply further filters on the images. The first one is that alignment. We can adjust the alignment of the images to get a good panorama of fixed length and breadth. We can also try to merge the seam by blurring the area around the seam region.
Future works. Depth imaging. The current optimizations we have used for images where we can ignore depth. However, the same algorithms and optimizations can be modified to include depth and convert it into a 3D model. For example, Ransack algorithm implementation currently ignores the depth vector while calculating inliners. However, the given paper suggests a solution. We will be looking into this for future references. Panorama wrapping. The next step we have to achieve is wrapping of the panorama to create a 360-degree field of view. However, currently we have created is a planar panorama. We need to convert it into cylindrical or spherical panorama in order to wrap it. While managing it, a number of issues also need to be taken care of, such like alignment and drift. This is a crucial step as it will require transforming of coordinates and projection of points. Once this is achieved, it becomes very straightforward. Real-time stitching. The main objective of the given project is stitching of videos and reconstruction of it. Once we are able to generate the panorama, we can simply render it at some frames per second. The optimizations such as SIFT, FLAN, etc. were kept in mind in order to keep the loss at minimum. Also, the current code is in Python, which will be later ported to C++ in order to improve the rendering of panorama. Assuming the normal frame rate of 60 frames per second, we will get a rate drop up to 16 frames per second according to the current code. This will be improved later as we will be using C++. Generation of point cloud. The final step before we can render it in 3D post-processing software is the generation of point cloud of the wrap panorama. Once this is achieved, all that is left is texture mapping.
So this is all from Team 43. Thank you. Hope you have enjoyed our R1 presentation. Now here you can have a look at the references which we have referred to. This includes various pages, articles and research papers which we have used for our help throughout